I would say, take a poll. How many people think that silver will outperform gold this year? And I'm not sure if I did it in 2022 or not. I probably did. And, of course, people who follow me follow a lot of things, but silver particularly. So most of the time it's, 70-30 or that type of thing. And this year it actually happened, even though, it's nothing to write home about. I mean, gold basically did a round trip from where it started at the beginning of the year and ended, pretty much the same price, give or take some. And silver did eke out, I think it was a 4.7% gain year over year, but it moved a lot between the beginning and the end, as you well know, Kai. I mean, I could go on. It started at, I don't know, 23-ish or something. I know it hit 26 and kind of double top. And then we started to sell off and got down to 18. I said 1850 was the bottom, so I got pretty close to the bottom. And then it started this rally in the last several weeks, and it's been strong. Gone from, up about several dollars actually. And the inventory all year has continued to be depleted off the two main leverage position exchanges, meaning the LBMA and the COMEX. So it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, you mentioned sort of the trade pattern last year. I have it in front of me here as well. As you said, there's that double top at 26, but then it sort of disappeared. And it was quite volatile in between, a couple spikes there. And what was I looking at it? End of September, or a couple price spikes as well from the $18 range. We jumped up to $22 or $21. We dropped down again to 18. I was curious. Of course, you have a really good finger on the pulse there of the silver market. What was driving the prices? Was it just the US dollar and the Fed, or was there more involved than just that?
Well, that's always hard to answer because, you'd have to do a survey and ask why of every participant, to get a real clear answer. But you can speak in a broad brush view. And I think it's industrial demand hasn't gone away. In fact, it's at least what it was, if not increasing, due to a push for green energy and solar, especially with the energy situation coming out of Russia into Europe. So that's one part of it. The other part is the re-education of monetary history to a lot more people. When I'm referring to Wall Street Silver, started roughly 2 years ago, and the amount of participation in that arena has been tremendously big relative to when it started. So you have a group of what we call silver stackers. I think they call themselves silverbacks, which is, I digress, but silverback is something you should look up and get a feel for what a silverback gorilla demeanor is. And so this is added to it. So you have more retail demand, you have more or equal industrial demand, and a dwindling supply, plus supply disruptions. And what we don't talk about, I know we will later, is what effect does the 70% of the market, which is your base metal mining, do to the silver supply? And this is something that's largely overlooked by some.
No, absolutely. You wanted to touch on something you mentioned in the first answer, actually, of our conversation here, was the draining supply or stockpiles at the COMEX and at the LBMA, right? And why wasn't that priced in more? Again, I look at the silver chart here on my left, and no, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense looking at it, because we've been going through that narrative, and you mentioned Wall Street Silver. Silver Screw sort of comes out of that as well. Stockpiles have been draining, but the price hasn't really moved. Again, we ended the year flat, fortunately, but why wasn't that reflected in the price?
I really can't answer that. I'm going to answer it, so I just contradicted myself. But there is a lag. Why is there a lag? I do not know. But what I can tell you are these facts. So from 1990 to 2005, there was a 100 million ounce deficit for 15 years in a row. And the above ground silver supply, talking commercial bar supply, went from 2 billion ounces down to 500 million ounces. And that happened around 2006. But if you check the price of silver at that extremely small above ground silver supply, supply and demand, you think, well, geez, the price has got to be going up. But it wasn't. But you get 5 years later, from 2006 to 2011, the price went parabolic for a while. So there is this lag. And again, I can't explain why. So on that basis, how silver behaves through the last several decades, I can pretty much indicate that we're going to see another lag, which means we're going to continue to see the drain people are going to be scratching their heads. Why is it reacting? Why is it reacting? And about the last time the last person that gives up because it isn't moving because it should be moving sells out, then the market will take off. I mean, that's just how it is.
Not every single time, I guess. Yeah, just but then it goes too parabolic too fast sometimes, right? It goes too
right. Well, that's
fast.
The other problem is that it really does get squeezed. Then you've got a double situation. You've got truth or consequences. The truth is it's being drained, and the consequences are if I don't have it, I'm out of business. So you've got the industry competing with retail investors and maybe even institutional investors to buy what little remains. It's such a small pile. It's like the float in the stock. I mean, you might have a lot of shares outstanding, but the float is really tight. There's only so much that will be bought or sold. Just any small buying drives the price far higher. And that's what you see in the silver market.
No, absolutely. And, you're a veteran in the silver space, obviously. You are the silver guru. Anything that surprised you in 2022? Anything that caught you off guard or something that you learned that you didn't expect in the silver market?
Well, a couple things, really. One was the amount of imports that India did. And the second one was seeing the Silver Institute come out and announce that there was round numbers, a 200 million ounce deficit. So those two things were, I think, somewhat of a surprise to me. There were others I'm probably, not thinking about, but those two are the ones that stand out, off the cuff. I think, again, when the main focus is the price, and of course we all focus on the price, but if we look longer term at the fundamentals, then I think people that see those sometimes violent price fluctuations that really don't make sense from a fundamental basis will longer term. And I don't think the longer term is much longer. I know I sound like a broken record. I know I have my detractors. But, when you get to the end of the road, you're there. And I think we are at the end of the road, which means that we are going to see a much bigger shift from what we saw last year in 2022 in 2023, which means stocks, bonds, and real estates are persona non grata. And where do you go from there? It's pretty much the commodity sector, with the top tier being the money metals. So I'm pretty bullish over this next year.